My name is Lydia Carver, 31 years old. The morning air was thick with salt and memory. The dock was alive. Engines roaring, ropes slapping against hulls, gulls cutting through the sky like impatient spectators. The scent of diesel mixed with seaweed and old pride. I stepped out of the cab, clutching a small leather suitcase, its worn handle digging into my palm like the past refusing to let go. Ahead, the polished expanse of the yacht club glittered in the rising sun, all white decks and laughter. And there he was, Uncle Greg, flanked by my cousins and a half circle of men in tailored suits. They stood near the boarding area, their laughter carrying easily across the water. It had that familiar sound, too sharp, too rehearsed. "Well, look who washed up," Greg said, his grin precise enough to slice. "You're here to wave goodbye, not bored, sweetheart." Laughter rippled through the group. My cousin Natalie tilted her sunglasses down, voice dripping sugar. "Guess someone didn't get the memo. This trip's for shareholders only." My jaw tightened, but I didn't bite back. Not yet. I'd promised myself, not today. Greg's gaze skimmed over my clothes. Gray blazer, black flats, the same look I'd worn in interviews that never called back. "Still playing dress-up in bargain rack suits, huh? Honey, this is a yacht club, not a thrift pier." His words hit, the way they always had. Maybe because, for years, I'd let them. After my father died, Greg took over Carver Maritime Holdings, claiming it was for the family's stability. He left me with condolences, an eviction notice, and a reputation for being too emotional to handle business. He was right back then, but not anymore. A deep rumble shook the dock. Heads turned. From beyond the harbor wall, a sleek white yacht glided into view, sunlight glancing off its chrome edges. Its name shimmered across the bow in silver, the Solace. Conversations faltered. Crew members in Navy uniforms lined the deck in perfect formation. Then a man in a captain's hat descended the ramp, posture straight, expression unreadable. Greg frowned. "Whose boat is that?" The captain stopped in front of me and removed his cap. "Miss Lydia Carver," he said evenly. "Your yacht is fueled and ready. Permission to escort you aboard." The laughter stopped. Greg blinked. "Her what?" The captain didn't even glance his way. "Your yacht, ma'am." For a heartbeat, silence pressed against the water, then a few uneasy murmurs. Natalie let out a small, nervous laugh that died mid-breath. I took a slow breath, steady, deliberate, then walked past Greg. My heels clicked against the dock like a drumbeat of finality. "You heard the man." Greg stumbled a step forward. "Wait, your yacht? Since when?" "Since last week." I met his eyes, letting the calm burn steady. "You really should pay attention to what you sign when you're celebrating too hard." His face paled. "You tricked me." "No," I said softly. "I just stopped letting you trick me." The captain gestured to the ramp. "Ma'am, your crew is waiting." "Thank you." I stepped forward. Behind me, I could feel their eyes. Greg's disbelief, Natalie's silent horror, the businessmen's whispered calculations. Every step was a release, every footfall a small act of reclamation. When I reached the ramp, I turned once more. Greg stood frozen, mouth half open, the same way he had when he took my father's office chair for the first time. "You always said I didn't belong here," I said quietly. "Maybe you were right. I don't belong with you." Then I climbed aboard. The engines roared, waves surging beneath us as the Solace cut through the harbor. The dock grew smaller, the figures fading into specks swallowed by distance. The captain approached again. "Destination, ma'am?" "Forward," I said, "full speed ahead." He nodded and turned away. The yacht surged forward, slicing through open water. The wind whipped through my hair, the salt burning against my skin in a way that almost felt like cleansing. My phone buzzed, a dozen missed calls. Greg, of course. I stared at the vibrating screen until it stopped. When it rang again, I answered. "You think this is funny?" His voice exploded through the line. "You think you can humiliate me like that?" "I didn't humiliate you," I said evenly. "You did that yourself. You tricked me into signing that transfer." I almost laughed. "You were too busy showing off to notice the fine print. The same arrogance that made you steal Dad's company made you lose it." He went silent, breathing hard. "You'll regret this, Lydia." "You said that when you fired me," I said, voice calm. "How did that turn out?" Then I hung up. The horizon stretched endless ahead. My reflection shimmered faintly in the glass window. Same face, new eyes. Not the girl they used to mock, but a woman carved by loss and time. Below deck, I opened a safe built into the wall, one my father had installed long ago and Greg had forgotten existed. Inside, stacked neatly, were folders and documents. Originals. Proof of Greg's forgery and manipulation. I'd spent years piecing them together from hidden files, anonymous tips, old archives. But I hadn't come to destroy him. At least that's what I told myself. I wanted the truth out, wanted the company restored to what it once stood for. On the topmost folder, in my father's handwriting, always remember who you are, never fight for revenge, fight for what's right. The words stung, because somewhere between the plan and the payoff, I wasn't sure which one I was doing anymore. Just after midnight, a knock echoed against the cabin door. "Ma'am," Captain Harris said, "we've got an incoming call, anonymous source." "Patch it through." The voice that came through was low, urgent. "Miss Carver, you don't know me, but your uncle isn't done. He's meeting investors tonight at the Grand Harbor Hotel. He's trying to reclaim the board before your announcement." I gripped the edge of the table. "Where exactly?" "Top floor, private conference room." The line went dead. Greg. Predictable, desperate, but predictable. "Change course," I told the captain. "Destination, Grand Harbor." He hesitated. "At this hour?" "Yes," I said quietly. "We're not done yet." As the Solace veered off, the city lights shimmered on the horizon like embers waiting to reignite. The water thrashed beneath us, relentless, alive. And as I stood on the deck, wind clawing through my hair, one thought pulsed in rhythm with the waves. This isn't over. By the time the Solace slipped into Grand Harbor, dawn had bled the sky into pale steel and pearl. The city rose ahead, glass ribs and gleaming edges, looking like something that could cut if you touched it wrong. I stepped onto the dock with purpose coiled inside me, the kind that doesn't need to be loud to be dangerous. Captain Harris walked a pace behind until we reached the security gate. I lifted a hand. "Stay with the yacht." He nodded once, the kind of respect that never asked for thanks. Inside the hotel lobby, the marble floor caught horizons of light and folded them beneath my shoes. People hurried past with cups, files, phone calls, clenched between their teeth. No one looked at me, which felt like a gift. The elevator doors opened with a bell-soft chime. I stepped in alone. The walls were mirrored, and for a second my reflection doubled and redoubled until the small box held versions of me I did not recognize. Girl on the dock, woman on the yacht, daughter at a funeral who didn't cry because everyone was watching. Somewhere in the thinning space between floors, I heard my father's voice, the way memory carries it. "Don't chase applause, guy kid, yes. Chase the truth." At the top floor, the doors parted onto cool carpet and colder air. A receptionist glanced up, startled, mouth opening into a question that died when I kept walking. The corridor smelled like lemon cleaner and coffee beginning to burn. Through a pane of glass, I saw them. Greg pacing beside a long conference table, jacket off, sleeves rolled back, jaw grinding. Around the table sat men and women I knew from headlines and shareholder lists, faces that had shown up at my father's memorial with polished condolences and left with polished forks from the catered spread. The ocean pressed silent against a wall of windows behind them, the water flat and indifferent. Someone tried to intercept me at the door. I didn't slow. "Miss Carver, this is a closed—" "Not anymore," I said and walked in. Conversations clicked off like switches. Greg froze mid-turn, expression slamming from command to contempt to something I recognized as fear. "You shouldn't be here." "Funny," I said, sliding my bag onto the glass. "That's what you told me the day you changed the company's locks." He recovered with a brittle smile. "Bored, this is my niece. She's having a moment." A gray-haired man near the end of the table, Mr. Alvarez, old friend of my father's, tilted his head the way you do when you hear a melody you almost remember. He did not smile. "Good morning, Ms. Carver." I opened the bag and set down a thick folder. The room noticed how worn it was, how the edges had softened from years of hands. "Everything you've done is here," I said to Greg, my voice level. "The shell accounts, the forged signatures, the contracts executed under my father's name after he was in the ground." Greg laughed once, a short, ugly sound. "She's desperate. She's trying to embarrass me because she—" I clicked a small recorder onto the glass, pressed play, and let his voice fill the room, liquid with celebration, a little slurred, fully himself. "She'll never find out. The papers are already signed. Her name's on them, but she doesn't know what they mean. By the time she does, I'll be untouchable." The silence after wasn't quiet. It throbbed. The ocean might as well have been in the room, the long pull and push of a tide taking something back. Greg's color drained, then surged with anger. You stole that, he snapped. You set me up. You've always been ungrateful. Your father never— Careful, I said softly, because softness was the sharper blade. If you drag my father into this, you'll remember how the truth cuts on both sides. A woman in a navy suit, legal counsel, I guessed by the calm way she folded her hands, leaned forward. We'll need to verify the authenticity of these documents. They're original, I said. My father kept duplicates where you would never think to look. I didn't say behind the old painting, didn't say in a safe you forgot, because the room didn't look expensive enough to matter. Some secrets deserve their own heartbeat. Mr. Alvarez cleared his throat. Greg, did you execute acquisitions in Daniel's name posthumously? These contracts show signatures dated after the funeral. That's absurd. Greg's voice lifted, then cracked. She's framing me. Then you won't mind allowing an independent audit, the woman in navy said. This is too significant for internal review. I watched the room's temperature shift, not all at once, but in increments, like a fog rolling out to reveal shoreline. Loyalty is a delicate animal. It stays where it's fed. Greg had fed it on charm and fear. I fed it on proof. People will always pretend they prefer charisma, but when a company's on the line, they kneel to facts. Greg tried to claw back ground. Let me speak plainly, he said, turning to the table, voice pitched low as if he and Truth were confidants. This is a stunt. She's angry because she didn't get what she wanted. She left the company. She couldn't handle pressure. I protected us. The word protected scratched something in me. Is that what you call siphoning accounts into your mistress's holding company? I asked. I laid down another document, a neat list of transfers, because the law calls it fraud. A few heads jerked. The woman in navy reached for the page without breaking eye contact with Greg. Is this true? Greg didn't answer. He looked at me the way people look at fires from their windows, wondering if it will jump the street. I let the next silence breathe. People underestimate silence. They think it's wasted space. Really, it's a stagehand changing sets. I didn't come here to watch you drown, I said finally. I came to stop you from taking the company down with you. The truth of that surprised me as it left my mouth. It tasted cleaner than the revenge I'd rehearsed. Mr. Alvarez stood, slow, old bones and older decency. We're suspending this meeting. The board will convene privately, without you, Greg. He turned to me with the same small nod he'd used when I was a kid, carrying coffee to my father's office. Ms. Carver, we'll need your presence for reinstatement procedures. Greg slammed his palm onto the table. A water glass skittered and toppled, spilling a bright, useless circle. You think she can fix what I built? You think she can lead? She's a fragile girl with a flair for theatrics. I did not look at him when I answered. I looked at the people whose livelihoods had been leveraged to buy his toys. I'm not here for theater, I said. I'm here to put engines back in ships. Alvarez's mouth tightened in what might have been the beginning of a smile. Security arrived, discreet and inevitable. Greg's bravado wavered, then steadied enough to throw me one last crooked grin. Enjoy the spotlight, Lydia. It burns. Only if you stand still, I said. I gathered the folder and the recorder. As I walked toward the door, the ocean swelled in the windows, a slow inhale. When the latch clicked shut behind me, my knees almost forgot how to hold me up. In the elevator, I leaned back against mirror and steel and breathed like I was learning it again. The phone buzzed in my bag. Messages bloomed. Legal counsel requesting scans, Alvarez asking to meet later, Captain Harris confirming the Solace's berth. One number I didn't recognize sent a single line. It isn't over. Ask him what you lost. The car eased open into the lobby's hum. I crossed the marble, stepped into the white glare of morning, and found Greg waiting on the plaza's edge, as if he'd been poured there by his own stubbornness. Security lingered close enough to pretend they weren't. He looked smaller without the room, as if the glass had been part of his spine. You did it, he said, almost conversationally as I approached. You got what you wanted. That implies you ever knew what that was. He chuckled, a sound without joy. You think this is justice? Maybe it is. Maybe you even deserve it. But you've won the wrong thing. Try a complete sentence. His eyes flicked to the hotel, then back to me. Daniel didn't leave you what you think he did, he said softly. You built a case from what you found. Cute, but you don't even know what you lost to get it. Something tightened behind my ribs. What did I lose, Greg? He took a step closer, close enough that I could smell the ghost of last night's whiskey, the kind he reserved for victories. Ask yourself why your father trusted me to sign anything at all. Ask yourself what he hid that you never asked to see. You chased the company so hard, you forgot to check the one place you never looked. Where? He smiled, but it didn't reach the eyes. If I tell you, I lose the last thing I have. He leaned back, shoulders slumping in a way I hadn't witnessed since the funeral. Enjoy your boardroom, Lydia. When the truth shows up, it never knocks. He turned away. Security didn't have to follow. He had nowhere to go that wasn't smaller. I stood in the plaza's draft. The city around me suddenly too bright, as if the light had sharpened into something clinical. The victory was real. The ground beneath it wasn't fixed. Ask him what you lost, the message had said. I didn't know who had sent it. I knew the question was mine now. Back at the dock, the Solace sat patient as a promise. I climbed aboard and let the hum of the systems steady me. Harris took one look at my face and asked nothing he didn't need. Where to, ma'am? Hold position, I said. We wait. For what? The thing that knocks last. I slipped the recorder into the safe beside the folders, then paused, fingers resting on the worn edge of my father's handwriting. In the blank space beneath his note, I wrote 2 words with a pen that shook only a little. Find truth. Outside, the ocean kept its counsel. Somewhere in the city behind us, a door I hadn't known existed was waiting to open. I didn't know what was on the other side. I only knew it would cost something. It always does. The wind freshened. The horizon thinned into a bright blade. For the first time since I'd stepped into the lobby, my breath came easy. The boardroom was done. The reckoning wasn't. The headlines broke before sunrise. Carver Maritime restored to founding family. Greg Carver under investigation for fraud and embezzlement. By 8 a.m., the story had spread across every business outlet and social feed. Reporters camped at the harbor gates, microphones blooming like strange flowers each time someone in uniform walked past. I watched it unfold from the balcony of my hotel suite, coffee cooling beside me, the city below reflecting in the harbor's calm water. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like silence after a storm. Too clean, too hollow. Down below, the Solace rocked gently at the private dock, her white hull catching the early light. I traced the rim of the coffee cup and thought of my father's handwriting in those old ledgers. Never fight for revenge. Fight for what's right. I wasn't sure anymore which one had driven me. Maybe both. Maybe that's why the triumph felt so thin. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Captain Harris stood in the doorway, cap in hand. Press conference starts in 30 minutes, ma'am. I nodded. We'll head down. The ride to the pier was slow, cameras flashing through tinted glass. Crowds had already gathered. Employees, investors, strangers who loved a redemption arc. I stepped out of the car into a tide of sound. Applause. Murmurs. The click of lenses capturing the woman who'd supposedly won it all. As I walked toward this podium, I caught sight of faces from my father's old crew. Men who'd worked engines through storms. Women who'd balanced the books when no one else cared. They stood near the front, eyes bright, uncertain. Behind them, a forest of reporters leaned forward, hungry. I took a breath that felt heavier than applause and faced the sea of expectation. My father, Daniel Carver, built this company from the ground up, I began. He believed in work done with honest hands and steady hearts. Somewhere along the way, that legacy got lost. It became about yachts, titles, and who looked the most powerful. The crowd was quiet now, the kind of silence that listens. But the truth, I continued, is that this company was never about one man's ambition. It was about the people who kept the ships running, who stayed when the storms came. Applause rose like wind filling a sail. I saw Captain Harris off to the side, smiling slightly, and for the first time since this started, the sound didn't make me flinch. A reporter called out, "What will happen to your uncle, Ms. Carver?" I hesitated only a moment. He'll face the consequences of his choices, but this, I gestured toward the employees, the sea. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about rebuilding trust. Cameras flashed again, a constellation of light in the morning haze. I smiled faintly, not for them, but for the version of me who'd once watched from the edge of that same dock, unnoticed. The press conference ended with more noise, more hands, more questions I didn't answer. By the time I slipped away, my voice had started to shake from repetition. Harris guided me through the back exit to the quieter side of the harbor. "Ma'am," he asked, "do you want to head back to the yacht?" "In a bit." I looked toward the far end of the pier. "I need to take a walk." The boards creaked under my steps. The same boards where Greg had once mocked me, where I'd once promised myself I'd never cry again. The air smelled of salt and varnish, and something older, something like forgiveness waiting its turn. I stopped near the edge, the water below clear enough to show my reflection trembling with the ripples. Behind me, footsteps approached, slow, familiar. "Didn't think you'd show your face here," I said without turning. Greg's voice was quieter than I remembered. Had to see it for myself. I turned. He wasn't wearing the suit anymore, just a windbreaker, jeans, the look of a man who'd lost more than money. His eyes were bloodshot but steady. "You won," he said. "You got everything you wanted." "Did I?" He gave a dry laugh. "The company, the headlines, the sympathy. You even got the yacht. Guess I underestimated you." I studied him. "You didn't underestimate me. You never really saw me." For a long time, neither of us spoke. The waves slapped gently against the dock's pylons, the sound small and endless. "I didn't just steal because I wanted power," Greg said finally. "Your father, he trusted me more than you think. He left things in my hands that weren't mine to keep." "Like what?" He shook his head. "You'll find it soon enough. Check the vault at headquarters. There's a letter there with your name. Daniel wanted me to give it to you when you were ready. I guess that day came without me." Something in his voice broke on the last word. "Why tell me now?" I asked. "Because whatever you think of me, I loved him too. And because you deserve to know why he made the choices he did." I searched his face for the lie, but for once, there wasn't one. Only exhaustion and a trace of the man my father used to call brother. He started to walk away. "You'll understand when you read it. Maybe then you'll see that not everything I did was out of greed." "Greg," I said softly. He stopped but didn't turn. "I never wanted to destroy you." "I know," he said. "That's why you did." And then he left, disappearing down the pier, shoulders hunched against the wind. That night, I returned to the corporate building for the first time in years. The guard at the entrance looked surprised but didn't question me. Inside, the air smelled of paper and stale ambition. The vault was still there, untouched behind a panel in my father's old office. Inside was a single sealed envelope, my name on the front, written in his familiar slanted hand. I sat at his desk and opened it. "Lydia," the letter began. "If you're reading this, it means you've faced Greg and learned what he took, and maybe what he carried. He was never meant to inherit the company, but he was meant to protect it until you could. He made terrible choices, yes, but he also carried burdens I never shared with you. I forgive him. I hope someday you will too, and I hope you never forget that power without mercy is just another form of weakness." My throat tightened. The page blurred. I folded it carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. Outside, the night was quiet. The harbor lights shimmered like small prayers across the water. Later, aboard the Solace, Harris approached again. "Destination, ma'am?" I looked toward the horizon, where the sea met the stars in a thin line of silver. Anywhere new, somewhere peaceful. He nodded, signaling to the crew. The yacht began to move, slow at first, then faster, slicing through the dark water. I stood at the bow, wind tangling my hair, watching the city shrink behind me. The dock, the boardroom, the applause, all of it fading into distance. For years, I thought I was chasing justice. Now I knew I was searching for peace. The horizon opened like a door, and for the first time, I didn't look back.